Web Marketing That Works podcast, episode 133, with today's guest, Paul Greenberg from Nora.
Welcome to the Web Marketing That Works podcast. Come behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments and listen in as amazing guests confess the truth about what really works. Now, here are your hosts, Adam Franklin and Toby Jenkins.
My name's Adam Franklin, and you're listening to the Web Marketing That Works podcast, which is the show for people like us that love marketing on the web. So you're going to be taken behind the scenes of real-life marketing experiments. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to confess what's failed, and also reveal the truth about what really works. So the show is brought to you by our book that Toby and I wrote. It's also called Web Marketing That Works, and you can get your hands on the bonus 33 marketing templates. If you haven't already downloaded those, they are available at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Okay, so today's guest is an interesting fella. He is Paul Greenberg, and he founded Deals Direct, which was a huge online retailer. He started that in 2004. He sold that essentially when venture capital bought the company in 2011. And he subsequently started Nora, which we're going to talk about more on the show. But he's known as the grandfather of online retail, even though I don't even think he's a grandfather himself. He's a very interesting man, a South African guy who wrote the book Africa to the ASX, which documents his journey from obviously Africa to listing his company on the Australian Stock Exchange. Now, I had the pleasure of speaking alongside Paul at a conference recently, and once I heard what he had to say, I just had to get him on the show. So with that introduction, let's head over to the show. My name's Adam Franklin, and on the line I have Paul Greenberg. How are you, Paul?
Terrific, Adam. Good to be chatting.
Likewise. So a number of years ago, you started Deals Direct, and you're known as one of the pioneers of online retail. So I'd really like to sort of reflect back at some of the wins, some of the failures over that period of time with a specific lens on what you were doing in terms of online marketing. So do you want to take us back to those early days when you were setting up Deals Direct?
Terrific. Love to. And in fact, if I could, talking failure, can I talk very briefly on how I got to Deals Direct? Because, every journey's got its twists and turns.
Absolutely.
So the whole pathway to Deals Direct was one of pure failure. I actually started my life in the late 90s online flogging vintage guitars on eBay. So left South Africa. You could still hear my South African twang in the late 90s. Couldn't take my money with me. So a few vintage guitars, flogged those, tried to open a coffee shop, which failed miserably. I mean, everyone has a midlife crisis and a coffee shop features in it. Flogged a few vintage guitars on eBay to try and pay some debt. That led to a terrific eBay business called Auction Brokers. But that in turn, it went through its own twists and turns and eventually sort of collapsed, if you like, for want of a better word, into Deals Direct back in October 2004. And that was a terrific journey. Obviously, always ups and downs, but it was a terrific run and a privilege to be here quite a while later, with the current role I do. So, all right, so let's kick off Deals Direct. So your question again was,
what were some of the things you were doing in terms of online marketing back then? Because that was quite early days, I guess, with online retail.
It was. So, look, I think it's time I put my hand up to say that, and I probably will be hated for it. I was the guy, I believe, who invented spray and pray when it came to EDMs. I honestly have to say that whether I like it or not, that will be on my tombstone one day. Here lies Paul. He invented spray and pray. But look, we farmed a few emails, the truth of it all. We had a nice eBay business, a good size. I mean, Auction Brokers were doing, I don't know, $10 million a year in the heady days. So we launched Deals Direct with probably a database of about 30,000 customers. And how, that's not a bad database of active customers. How did we get them? We simply were selling stuff on eBay, often at no or very little profit. So it became very much an acquisition tool. And that was the kicker. Nothing more, nothing less. for Deals Direct, and in those early years relied very heavily on non-personalized broad strokes EDMs to build the buzz out. So that was it. I think your next logical question is, could you do that today? And my quick answer would be no.
It's a vastly different landscape today, hey?
Isn't it just? I mean, obviously personalization and, one-to-one communication is the ball game. But back in those days, everything was still quite novel, and, we didn't have the smarts. And I don't think, in fairness, the customers needed it. It was, we were selling stuff that people didn't always need at prices they couldn't resist. And that was the model. And discovery, it was always about, well, what's going to pop up in the inbox? And one might argue that LD today do the same thing very successfully. So who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. So you were getting people selling stuff on eBay, not making much profit per se, but building your list and then selling all your deals directly to those people.
That's right. Now, eBay obviously have wisened up, and who can blame them? I mean, it's not as easy today as it was back then to farm eBay for lists. I mean, it wasn't the purpose then. It isn't the purpose now. So we were a bit cheeky, but, ignorance is bliss. And it wasn't a deliberate strategy. I think we realized, we love eBay, by the way, and I'm on the record as saying it's been a terrific incubator of entrepreneurship. I see Kogan today announce his IPO. He started on eBay. Our good friends at Catch of the Day, Gabby and Hezi, they started on eBay. I started on eBay. There are many, many entrepreneurs out there who can track their early success. A lot of the e-tailers selling on eBay. So it's been a great incubator for entrepreneurship. But to be fair, you can build a nice business on eBay, but you can't build equity on eBay. Mm-hmm. And I think I worked that out quite early on. To build something to sell, you'd have to have your own brand. And that's exactly what we did.
Okay, so how did things then evolve from basically the spray and pray email marketing technique, which, as you say, probably wouldn't cut it so much today, especially without segmenting the list and tailoring the offers to individuals.
Yep.
What changed from 2004 throughout the next sort of 6 or 8 years?
Well, I think the next kicker, so EDMs, we kind of took the leap and the lead, and we were one of the early ones. So our inboxes weren't nearly as full then as they are today, so we could get away with it. But the next win, if you like, and that was a significant opportunity for us, a low-cost way to build the business out, and it worked a treat. The next big win, which you might not like, is back in 2005-06, Deals Direct now had a bit of momentum. I took the business onto television, which was a bit unusual considering we were a pure play e-tailer. But I had a sense that one of the impediments as we were starting to grow was trust and safety. There were a lot of shonks out there, and in cyberspace we know there still are, to give ourselves sort of credibility as an above-the-line brand. And, we're starting to do tens of millions of dollars of turnover a year. I thought, well, we needed to be out amongst, the other big businesses, and they were all on television. So I did a bit of digging around, met a mate who we're still friends today at a small agency making TV ads, and I hit the big stadium at Homebush, which carries about 80,000 people. And myself and my young business partner, Mike Rosenbaum, we got into the middle of the stadium, and we said, we got customers that can fill the stadium 4 or 5 times over. Wow. So it was nice and visual. We weren't a sort of sideshow business running it out of a garage. We took the cameras right through our distribution center, which was thousands of square meters of product. And I think that gave a sense of size and scale. Were we trying to just be braggarts? No, because there's no benefit in that. But we were trying to say to customers, we're a mainstream business, where, of course, back in those days, many online retailers weren't accepted as Rigi-Dig, and we were, and we were certainly a good sized business. So our next pitch was right to the other side of the spectrum on mainstream television, which was cheaper than one would have thought then, and probably still is today.
Okay, because I guess back in those days, people were a bit skeptical of online businesses and pretty cautious still about putting their credit card into a website to order stuff. So that's looking back, that seems like a very logical step. How did it work for you? Did it go well?
Well, yeah, it worked well in terms of, it's very hard to measure, as we know. It's, digital, that's the beauty of your area. You can measure to the last millicent, your return on investment. With above-the-line branding like that, how do you really measure it? And by the way, the ads weren't product-specific. It was very much branding. But what I think it did do was it brought us a lot of mainstream credibility. So, the business continued to grow due to other marketing efforts, which we'll talk about. The TV brought us, I think, more suppliers to our door, and some of the established suppliers had been reluctant to supply pure play retailers like Deals Direct. And I think seeing us on TV kind of created a little bit more of, all these guys are the real thing. And then last but not least, I'm a big fan, Adam, that entrepreneurs get from behind their businesses and put their personal brands out there. I don't need to sell that to you because you're the face of Bluewire, so you're ahead of the curve. But a lot of entrepreneurs I meet are still sort of hiding behind, and I say that with all due respect, hiding behind their businesses. And I think customers want to see a business with a mommy and a daddy, with a personality. And so that was the first time that I stepped out, and Mike Rosenbaum, who I founded the business with, we stepped out and said, well, this is us. We're flesh and blood. We've got a big warehouse. We've got more customers than can fill the stadium many, many times over. And we're the real thing. And I think it was a good message, and it was well received.
Okay. And then so from after that TV effort then, did you run with that for a couple of years and then take a different direction or a different tactic? What happened next?
Look, we did run with it. I mean, I'm a big fan of experimentation. As one is encouraged to do in your own business, we broke a few rules. So in terms of mainstream media, a lot of people talk about penetration marketing. Whether you're on radio, TV, you should own, a slot or section, and that often requires a deep commercial commitment. I like moving things around. So we did paper catalogs. I mean, go figure. It's a pure play online retailer doing paper catalogs. And one of the ways I got that idea was when we started Deals Direct, I had a little Citroen van, those little Citroen baker's vans. You almost imagine a baguette sticking out the back of it. And it was Deals Direct on the side. And I used to head around to suppliers and go down to the post office and deliver parcels. And someone said to me the other day, mate, you must have bloody 10 of those vans on the road because we saw 10 of your vans today.
Yeah.
And then I realized it was just me moving around Sydney, from 6 a.m. till midnight, doing deliveries. And then I thought, what, there's something there, that sense of scale, which was in some ways an illusion, could be applied to marketing. So I started moving stuff around, and we didn't have huge budgets, but popped a bit of stuff on telly, did a bit of cataloging, did a bit of radio, did a little bit of, above the, obviously digital marketing, which we'll talk about. And of course, what did people say? You guys must be doing so well because you're everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, we were everywhere, but in very small licks because we didn't have the money to be everywhere in big licks. And I call it rotation marketing for want of a better term. I believe in it. Not everyone's cup of tea. You could probably shoot me down in 5 minutes, Adam, in terms of the rationale. But it worked for me and it worked for us at the time. So, we had to play.
That's cool. That's what I love too, marketing experiments and seeing what works and what doesn't. And it's not always the same for each different person, of course. But I particularly like that your little Citroen van, people seeing it everywhere and thinking that you're way bigger than you are, because I think similar stuff can be achieved these days with, say, like Facebook remarketing or retargeting, where, someone visits your site and then you go to Facebook and then you see that company's messages, or you go to a Google site or you see the Google ads and it's messages related to that site. So people that don't understand how retargeting works might go, whoa, these guys are huge. They're everywhere. I'm seeing them on news.com.au. I'm seeing them on Facebook. Man, they're massive. But it, again, could just be a small business, but you're showing up in front of the right people at the right time. So I think there's a modern social media equivalent of that Citroen van.
Look, I completely agree. And I think retargeting, which I'm a massive fan of, and we use it at Deals Direct. Again, we were one of the early adopters. I think it's absolutely brilliant. It's more than just the little van pitching up where it doesn't want to be seen. This is relevant content being served up to the viewer, stuff that they want to see because they've been looking at it. So I think it takes that kind of sense of moving around and scale to the next level, because it's relevant. It's the van needing to where it needs to be at a certain point in time. So I'm a massive fan, as you'd expect me to be, of retargeting or remarketing as used interchangeably.
Yeah, retargeting has really changed my stance on what I would normally call interruption advertising or interruption marketing, which I guess was much more mainstream. Putting an ad on telly, you're interrupting someone's TV show, and obviously it can work very well. But I've been very sort of anti-interruption marketing over the years, and I sort of talk about how it's better, in my opinion anyway, to be building an online asset of content and everything else. And traditionally I've said, if you're just buying ads to interrupt people to try and lure them over to your website and buy a product, then, the money you spend on advertising is there. You've got to spend your money to get a click, but as soon as that click's happened, you've got to pay more money. And it's very addictive and very expensive. But my stance has changed now with the introduction of retargeting, because as you say, it's relevant. And if someone's been to your site or they're on your email list and you can market messages, especially to them, then it's not interruption, in my opinion, because it's adding to their experience of something that they've demonstrated an interest in. So it's really exciting times.
Completely agree. Look, and I mean, those kind of crude, with a small c things we did, things have moved on, and I'm absolutely delighted to see, what you and your clients and some of the businesses out there are doing, which is really taking it to a much more sophisticated level of relevance, hyper measurement, and making sure that it's not just, the old 50% of my marketing works, I just don't know which half, which is still a sobering comment from all those years ago.
It is, hey. And just interesting too, you're saying your paper catalogs, it's very, seemed unconventional for a pure play digital company. But I was walking around Sydney yesterday and noticed that Airbnb had billboard ads and actual advertisements plastered to walls, which again is the same, it seems counterintuitive, but obviously it's working.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, customers are everything, anywhere, anytime. And so, I think these brands are trying to take it to the next level and really get into the psyche of shoppers. So that, see eBay doing some nice billboard and back of bus stuff. So everyone's having a go, and why not? Yeah.
So, so we've done the paper catalogs and whatnot. What sort of stuff were you doing right up until the point where you were bought out?
So that's right. So, of course, to be fair, so all this kind of rather hokey stuff got us to a level, but like any smart entrepreneurs, you've got to hire people smarter than yourself. And that's exactly what we did. We brought in, marketing, experts and specialists. Our heads of marketing had come from very experienced, businesses, like Google, and they took it to the next level, which was obviously, highly measurable. We obviously became big customers of Google and paid search. I think we developed strong SEO capability because our brand was so strong. We had many, many years of brand equity, good, content. We had some terrific runs on a current affair, which is marvelous, for our archived content. And so we drove very hard into paid and natural search. We obviously were early adopters of remarketing. We embraced social media as quickly as we could, and we developed a good size following on Facebook and Twitter. The business then sort of kicked on, and there were much more rigorous. When private equity came to the company in 2011, and they wanted to, they were much more focused on the numbers and the science, which I thought was a good thing. I do caution sometimes between sort of, losing your heart entirely to your head. Retail can be very creative at its core, and, you don't want to lose that kind of sense of playfulness. But in truth, we were then, good sized business, lots of revenue, private equity in our corner. And the game got a lot more serious, as you'd expect it to do. So, we played in all fields. I'm still a big fan of trying to cover as much as possible, but doing it well. So just continual optimization. As always, with marketing, no one silver bullet, as we know.
And so when that happened, that was 2011 or 12 when private equity came along?
Private equity came in, Adam, in 2011, bought the Cornerstone then, and pretty much took the business over in 2013. And that's when I moved on to greener pastures, to Nora. So, those 2 years were interesting times.
Yeah, so that was like an earn-out type thing, was it?
Yeah, an earn-out. And I'd flagged quite early on that, I'm an older guy in a younger person's game. So I'd flagged to the guys coming into the investors that I was looking to do other things. And I think they understood. I've been at it for many, many, many years. So it was less about an earn-out, more about, well, let me do what I can and try and add as much value. But, brought in a professional CEO. And he brought in his leadership team. And I just thought, I took the chair role for a while. And then I thought, well, okay, time to do something else, and was very supported by the board to go and experiment. And Nora was born.
Okay, so Nora, that's the National Online Retailers Association?
Well, there you go. Started its life in 2013 as the National Online Retailers Association, or Nora. And then I think 12 months into the journey, we kind of realized that customers shop by brand, not by channel. So it was a bloody stupid name with hindsight. But we've stuck with it. And we go by Nora, Adam. We don't go by the National Online Retailers Association.
Oh, yes, okay.
So we talk about new retail. A few people have said to me, well, why did you change your name? I said, well, I remind them that Qantas once stood for the Queensland and Northern Territory Air Service. But, they're not going to change that. So I'm sticking
VHP,
with Nora. Well, that's right. Yeah. Broken Hill
Petroleum.
Petroleum.
Maybe, was it?
So.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so I love the acronym. It's a good legacy. But to be clear, we don't talk about online retail. We talk about new retail. What does that mean? Well, we don't like jargon, neither do customers. 3 very simple things: technology-led, customer-centric, and a global and borderless retail. That'll drive Australia's retail future, we believe. And that's what we go under. So Nora is the voice of new retail.
Oh, very good. So what sort of things do you help your members or retailers with?
So I think the big focus, predictably, has been on education. I think we've all been overwhelmed by the pace of change. I mean, it's quite unprecedented the way things have accelerated, and invariably in those fast-changing times, we look around and we're looking for help. We're looking for other people's experiences. We're looking for shared conversations. So Nora is an educational organization. We provide short-form, high-impact learnings. We're a catalyst for collaboration. We're big fans of alliances, and we encourage them wherever we can. We're obviously a catalyst for conversation, and we bring the different parts of this diverse ecosystem together wherever we can. And then last but not least, our big push at the moment is cross-border trade, getting Australian retailers, to grow their addressable market from the 23-odd million it currently is to the 7.5 billion that it will be. So that's a big focus. The world is, of course, flat, as we know.
Yes, absolutely. Now let's finally finish on your book.
Right, which I should say, and you probably give me a little bit of a straight talk on this. I wrote it when I left Deals Direct around that 2012-13 cusp. I felt that I wanted to write a book more for myself. And I called it Africa to the ASX because, of course, Deals Direct listed on the stock exchange, and I came in the 90s from South Africa. So I thought it was a nice acronym. But that book is now 3-odd years old, so it's time for a new one. And I am busy trying to write something, Adam, but you know how hard it is to find time.
And I know how hard it is to write.
Exactly. So I'm churning them out, a page here and a page there. But I've actually got 2 books in the works. So hopefully, I've got the one out there. It's called Africa to the ASX. And any of your listeners on the podcast and on the blog can get it for free if they go to paulgreenberg.com.au and just click on the PDF link and download it. And if someone really wants a copy, as you know, the signed copies go for a lot less on eBay than the unsigned. But I'm happy to flick a few over to any of your followers and your listeners.
Well, that's very generous of you, Paul. I'll link to the PDF, and I'll let people know in the show as well how to get a hard copy.
Great.
Well, all the best with writing the next book. When that's going to hit the bookshelves, let us know. We can come back and talk about it and spread the word some more. But I really appreciate what you've shared with us today. And so interesting to hear of what it was like in online retailing, particularly over the last 10 or 12 years, I guess. A very fascinating journey.
Well, thanks for that. And, I can't help thinking as you talk, that my nickname out there, whether I like it or not, is the grandfather of online retail. I don't mind if my teenage kids aren't overly fond, but things have changed, mate. And you're right, from the late 90s where I really got into the game to now, it's been a shift that is hard to describe, just unbelievable. But thanks very much for those kind words, and it's been lovely chatting with you.
Okay, thanks for coming on, Paul. Cheers.
Cheers, Adam.
And that's a wrap for my chat with Paul Greenberg. I really like Paul. He's very amusing, very humble. He sold his business for lots and lots of money. And it's really it's a bit like a walk down memory lane, except that it's not my memories, it's his. But going back to 2004 and uncovering and talking about some of those tactics that worked really well for him back in the day. And you've got to remember, it was a very different world back in 2004. And getting people's email addresses from eBay purchases and then doing the spray and pray technique obviously was very effective. Of course, it's a different world these days, but you've got to move with the times and do what has leverage at whatever point in time you are. So very fascinating to have that chat with Paul. If you do want to get your hands on his book, I can organise that for you, as he said in the show. Look, email me, adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. If you email me, just let me know you want a hard copy of his book. He will send you a copy in the mail. So just email me if you want a hard copy. If you want a soft copy, go to paulgreenberg.com.au and download the PDF for free. Up to you. I highly recommend you get your hands on a copy. Okay, so to conclude, this show was brought to you by our book, Web Marketing That Works. Get your hands on the templates at bluewiremedia.com.au/book. Email me your feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever. I'm keen to hear it. Email's the best, adam.franklin@bluewiremedia.com.au. Send me guest suggestions, send me anything you like. I'll look forward to getting that. And if you enjoyed the show, I would love it if you took 60 seconds now to jump over to iTunes or Stitcher or whichever platform you listen to this on and leave us an honest review. So thank you in advance, and I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye.